Welcome to this episode of Jam. I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. Today I want to talk to you about something that I think that all of us face at some point in our lives. It's something that can be exciting, uncomfortable, freeing, and sometimes even painful. Today's episode is called Out with the Old and In with the New. Now, I'm sure you've heard that before, and before you start to think that this is another conversation about like a New Year's resolution or starting over, just stick with me. This isn't about becoming a completely different person. It's about becoming more of who you were meant to be. Because if we're honest, a lot of us are carrying things that have expired or gotten old. Old habits, old mindsets, old fears, old relationships, old versions of ourselves. And sometimes we become so comfortable in carrying them that we don't even realize how heavy they are. I want you to think about your closet for a second. Most of us have clothes hanging in there that we hadn't worn in years. We keep them because maybe one day they'll fit, or maybe they'll remind us of a different season of life. But eventually those clothes become clutter. And the same thing happens in our lives. We hold on to old habits that no longer help us. We keep replaying thoughts that no longer serve us. We stay connected to people that no longer bring out the best in us. We carry these beliefs that are true for previous versions of ourselves, but they aren't true anymore. And then we wonder why we feel stuck. The truth is, growth often requires letting go. We love talking about what we're going to add to our lives. A new goal, a new opportunity, a new relationship, a new mindset. But sometimes the real question isn't, what do we need to add? Sometimes the question is, what do we need to release? What is taking up space in my life that needs to go? Let's start with habits. Habits shape our lives more than we realize. Not the big dramatic decisions, the little things, the things that we do every single day. The habits that become automatic. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's constantly comparing yourselves to others. Maybe it's spending hours scrolling on social media and then wondering why you feel drained or you hadn't got anything done. Maybe it's negative self-talk. Maybe it's saying yes to everyone except yourself. The thing about habits is they usually don't disappear overnight. They're replaced. You don't just stop a bad habit. You create a better one. You don't just stop negative thinking without intentionally practicing gratitude. You don't stop wasting time without creating purpose for your time. You don't stop unhealthy behaviors without replacing them with healthier choices. The old has to make room for the new, and it doesn't happen perfectly. That's important for you to remember. Growth is messy. Progress is rarely a straight line. Some days you'll feel like you're crushing it. Other days you'll feel like you're back at square one. You're not. You're learning. Now let's talk about people. Now this one can be hard because not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people are in our lives for a season, some for a reason, and some for a lifetime. The challenge is recognizing the difference. There are people who encourage your growth, people who celebrate your wins, people who challenge you in healthy ways, people who remind you who you are when you've forgotten. And there are people who constantly drain your energy, people who keep pulling you back into old patterns, people who only support the version of you that never changes. And here's something I've learned. Not everyone will be comfortable with your growth. Some people benefit with you staying the same. Some people like the version of you that had fewer boundaries, the version of you that never spoke up, the version of you that always put everyone else first. But growth sometimes means disappointing people who are benefiting from your lack of growth. And that's okay. Choosing peace is okay. Choosing healthy boundaries is okay. Choosing relationships that align with who you're becoming is okay. Now let's talk about thoughts, because some of the oldest things we're carrying, they aren't physical at all. They're mental. Maybe you've been carrying the thought that you're not good enough. Maybe you've been carrying the belief that it's too late for you. Maybe you've convinced yourself that because something didn't work before, it'll never work. Maybe you're still listening to the criticism that was spoken years ago, words that should have expired long ago. Thoughts are power. The stories we tell ourselves matter, and sometimes the most important thing we can do is challenge the narratives that we've accepted as truth. What if that limiting belief isn't true? What if you've outgrown that fear? What if you're more capable than you've been giving yourself credit for? What if the thing holding you back isn't your ability, but your belief? Imagine what would happen if you stopped speaking to yourself like an enemy and started speaking to yourself like someone worth encouraging, because you are. You deserve your own support. You deserve your own grace. You deserve your own patience. And finally, let's talk about things. Not just physical things, but commitments, obligations, schedules, expectations. Sometimes our lives become crowded with things that no longer belong there. We say yes because we've always said yes. We keep doing things because we've always done them. We keep carrying responsibilities that no longer make sense. And before long, we have no room left for what actually matters. Here's a thought. Every yes is a no to something else. Every commitment takes up space. So ask yourself, what deserves space in my life right now? And what doesn't? What am I holding on to simply because it's familiar? What would happen if I made room for something better? Because that's really what this episode is about, making room. The new can't fully arrive if we're clinging to everything old. You can't fill a cup that's already overflowing. You can't move into a new chapter while constantly reading the last one. You can't become who you're meant to be while desperately holding on to who you used to be. And that's not criticism. It's an invitation to release, to trust, to grow, to believe that letting go isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's freedom. Sometimes letting go is healing. Sometimes letting go is exactly what creates space for the life you've been hoping for. So as we wrap it up here today, I want to leave you with a few questions. What habit needs to go? What mindset needs to change? What fear needs to be challenged? What relationship needs healthier boundaries? What old version of yourself are you ready to thank and release? And what new thing are you making room for? A new opportunity, a new perspective, a new level of confidence, a new season of life, a new relationship. Whatever it is, I hope you embrace it, because growth isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the best version of who you already are. Thanks for spending time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need this reminder. And remember, sometimes the most powerful step forward starts with letting something go. So until next time, keep growing, keep believing, and keep making room for what's next. If not, you may be jammed. Thanks for listening.